Marjorie Rucker, and I am the Executive Director of the Business Council. Thank you. Thank you. So 25 years ago, a roundtable was developed by prominent black business leaders, many of whom are still here in the community and some in the room today, that wanted to hold corporations accountable for their goals or their spending goals with minority businesses. The first executive director of the Business Council was Darian Luckett, who I believe is joining us today. Darian, are you here? Thank you. So in 2000, the Business Council was taken in by the Metropolitan Milwaukee Association of Commerce, or the MMAC, as an affiliate. That means that we are a 501c3, but we are partners of the MMAC. We are not one of their direct programs. Devin Turner, who could not join us today because she is enjoying the rays in California, was the second executive director of the Business Council until she retired in 2009. She was responsible for starting our first formal supplier diversity module. This program offered a more formal structure for the minority businesses and corporate partners to have conversations about the needs of the corporations to help increase the spend that they were doing with the businesses. This module, now called the Business Connection module, is still our flagship program that we operate today, thanks to partners like Ms. Jessie Leonard, who has administered our module in the past, and currently Dr. Keenan Grinnell, who is our current module administrator. Could you both please stand? In 2010, Carla Cross became TBC's executive director. Carla was diligent about getting more corporate partners to the table, especially around large industries that had great opportunities for connecting MBEs into their procurement cycles, such as construction and professional services. Carla also is responsible for expanding the vision of TBC in terms of inclusion, as we started getting more brown and other businesses as a part of our membership. Carla was also one of the pioneers that reconstituted the Ethnic and Diverse Business Coalition, or the EDBC, in 2012. Carla, can you please stand? In 2014, I assumed the role of executive director. In addition to the hats I wear in regards to our Business Connection program, we also provide one-on-one technical assistance to our businesses, which is what makes us unique. We serve over 90 businesses that span over 33 different industries. You heard the numbers of what our business members have produced over the last 18 years, and you also have many examples in the room, such as Mr. Joe Tucker. If you are one of our businesses and you have not turned in your spend report, shameless plug, I need those, okay? Shameless plug. Well, this year, we have also provided support for the Thrive On Business Support Cohort in partnership with the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, Bruce City Match, in which we partner with LISC and many other community partners, as well as Flex Ride Milwaukee, which we work in partnership with Mobilize this past year. The Ethnic and Diverse Business Coalition. So let's talk about that. It is a true coalition of chambers of commerce and community development financial institutions that have come together to effectively advocate and lend a voice to the needs of the ethnic and diverse businesses that we serve. TBC performs all the administrative functions for the EDBC. So this past year, we developed tools, and I know Christy's gonna start laughing, Christy Luzar, the Wisconsin Technical Assistance Referral Tool, currently called the TART, the Wisconsin TART. Widen, which is a really nice online business directory. If you are a business in the room, please check that out. You can find it in your virtual program. Also, Associated Bank and the Brewers Community Foundation with their Cheer for Here program, as well as the Business and Construction Advanced Manufacturing Institute of Excellence. So we get to monitor all of those different projects on behalf of the coalition as well. However, I will tell you this, it is my extreme honor to work with these 14 entities around the state to lift our ethnic and diverse and underserved business communities together. If you are a member of the EDBC, please stand. And they came from all over the state today. Thank you. So now we're going to segue into what you are all here for. I know some of y'all love me, I know that, but I know y'all really here to see Roland, and I'm gonna get to that. But I want you to know this and why I called Roland in today. There's a famous quote by W.E.B. Du Bois that says, "A system cannot fail those it was never meant to protect." Diversity, equity, and inclusion is not supplier diversity. Supplier diversity is rooted in a business case and a return on investment for corporations, which simply means if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense for either party. Has nothing to do with a feel-good policy to pacify the masses, because some ethnic groups have been targeted and continue to be targeted for hundreds of years. I'm going to leave Roland and Deidre to drop that knowledge, because I know y'all ready for me to sit down. But as our theme goes, ain't no stopping us now. I got about another 15 in me before I hand it over to somebody else. All right? That being said, Deidre and Roland, take the stage away. I'm not going to read Roland's bio. You can find his full bio.
Got a minute, right? Since we got a second. Can I get a little clap real quick? A little soul clap. Yeah? We're really buying time so Roland can have his mic. I can get organized.
There's been so many things that's held us down, but now it looks like things are finally coming around. I know we've got a long, long way to go, and where we'll end up, I don't know. But we won't let nothing hold us back. We're putting our show together. We're polishing up our act.
All right.
1, 2, here we go.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, Roland.
What's going on?
Whew. I had this whole thing planned out to ask you, like, how your time in Milwaukee's been, if you got some good Milwaukee food and all the things. And then I found out you got here this morning.
Sure did. 6:30 flight. I'll be back out as soon as we get done.
The beauty of the grind.
Got to go live at 6 o'clock.
Gotta go live.
But we're actually live right now. So we also, my stuff always goes with me. And so when you own your show and own your own network, you can do what you want. So,
well,
so I asked them, were we streaming this? They said no. I was like, hold on. So we're streaming this now on the Black Star Network. You can pull up on our app or on our YouTube channel as well. You can share it. So,
well,
that's ownership.
Since you're going there, we already digging in, shall we? So I'll start by saying most folks are acquainted with knowing you as an acclaimed journalist. You are a master maestro contributor. I call you my unfiltered, data-weighted favorite commentator on major media outlets such as CNN, MSNBC, ABC, you name it, pick any. But I have to tell you selfishly, as an entrepreneur, I run a consulting firm that's leadership and culture, organization, and development, shameless plug. Your most motivating and inspirational journey for me has been your season as an entrepreneur, and particularly with you curating BSN. And I'm sure your entrepreneurial journey started before then, but that's probably when I started paying the most attention to your insights and path. Started when
I was 7.
Started when you were 7.
So my grandmother had a catering business, so I did that for 23 years. So from 7 to 30, my mom did cake, had a cake business, had multiple family members who did that. So Went to Communications High School, Jack Yates High School in Houston. And so owning was the focus from that point. I think one of the mistakes that I think a lot of people make, there are a lot of people who want to own, but they don't want to actually learn how to do the things that are necessary. And they just want to be able to have a CEO on their card. And so even when I was working for the Fort Worth Star Telegram, Austin American Statesman, KKDA Radio, there was a concept that I always use. It's called Me Inc. And that what often happens is people see themselves as employees and they're working for an employer. And I tell people, no, you should see yourself as the CEO, in essence, of your own company. And then you are a vendor, they are a client. And then when you look at it that way, you sort of approach it completely different. And that was always how I saw it. There's a great scene in the movie The Insider, which is the story about CBS and the tobacco battle. And Lowell Bergman was the producer, played by Al Pacino, and he said, Lowell Bergman, 60 Minutes, I wonder if one of my calls gets returned, and that's not the end of my name. And part of the problem for a lot of people is they literally are identified by who they work with. So I'm so-and-so with. For me, I refuse to ever be, I'm Roland Martin, CNN. So even when I was at CNN, they wanted me to leave TV One. See, a lot of people, they said, "Oh my goodness, when you left CNN, you went to TV One." No, I was actually with TV One before I was with CNN. TV One was paying me before, and CNN wanted me to leave TV One. They wanted me to leave Tom Joyner Morning Show. They wanted me to leave my own stuff, and I told them no. In fact, I remember having a conversation with a white male producer who's been quite paternalistic in his tone, and I don't take kindly to certain tones.
No.
And I don't. And he was basically telling me how I need to be more appreciative and take advantage of the opportunity. I said, I need you to back up. I have 5 revenue streams.
That's right.
You're number 3. There are 2 higher than you. I said, so I can just leave this and shift and go to the other 4. And I remember the last 4 conversations I had, Ken Jouts, who's executive vice president. Ken was a nice guy, but I mean, I knew what the game was. So he was sitting, he kept asking me, he goes, so he's like, how many speeches you give a year? And I'm like, about 40. And I can see him calculating in his head, hold up, if he getting this per speech times 40. He goes, wow, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, who do you speak to? I'm like, Fortune 500 companies, universities, business groups. And I'm like, and I know what he's doing.
Right.
And then he's like, and he's trying to figure this out. He's like, I think that's probably like number 2 to David Gergen. I was like, probably. And I wasn't flinching. I wanted him to understand, you don't control my livelihood, therefore you don't control my mouth.
That's right.
And so, and that's what a lot of people, and the mistake that a lot of people make. And again, first of all, everybody can't own. I mean, it's just a reality.
This is true.
But what I try to explain to people is you can't have an employee mentality even when you're working for someone.
That's right.
Because that thing can shift any day. I'm sitting here reading, there were several reporters who were laid off with the Texas Tribune, and people are just lamenting that fact.
Yes.
And I'm always reminding people, listen, if you are an employee, you are forget everything else. You are nothing more than a line item on an Excel spreadsheet.
That's right. That's right.
I don't care who you are.
That's right.
At the end of the day, the owner is going to be the one who's going to get who is going to make sure they get paid.
That's right.
And so a lot of people lose sight of that, and they don't quite understand just the thought process. So I try to get people to think differently first.
So, quick question. One of the things that I noticed strategically around Black Star Network is the fact that it's an OTT. And so for those who don't know what OTT is, it's an over-the-top network, which doesn't just mean that it's a, outstanding network. I want you to share what that means. But what I'd love for you to also to share is what made you want to curate that type of media experience, and how does that differ from your last chapter in entrepreneurship?
Well, first, I saw it 15 years ago. So I've always been... Again, I go back to going to a communications high school. So this is what I focused on when I was 14 years old. So I haven't changed in 41 years. And then when you're a student of your business, I mean, you have to study your business.
Yes.
So when I ran the Chicago Defender, I launched the nation's first black news source audio podcast. That was 2005. So all these people who were, 6, 7 years ago, like, oh my God, podcast. I was like, been there. And then launched the first video podcast in 2006. So I was doing literally video online in 2006. And so when you begin to study the business, you understand where we're going. You begin to realize that we started with broadcast television. Cable came in the late 1970s. Cable was really amazing for 25, 30 years. Then all of a sudden, digital comes in and cord cutting comes in. So you're in a situation, you take ESPN. ESPN, the place where it used to be is 100 million homes. That was like the platinum level. If you hit 100 million homes, only about 15 networks ever got to 100 million homes. Today, ESPN is in 74 million homes. By the end of December, they'll be under 70. So that's a loss of 30 million subscribers. They get about $8 to $10 per subscriber. So ESPN is $3.6 billion walked out of the door. So the reality is, so the game changes. And so if you're paying attention to that, you begin to see exactly what's going on. So in 2000, so I was fully aware of, again, I was studying and looking at all of the trends, the cord cutting trends. And I remember when it was only in 100, 200, 300, 400, 500,000. This year alone is going to be 9.3 million. And so I'm looking at that 10 years ago. So even when I was at TV One, I was like, yo, this is not going, I'm like, this is not going to end well. You have to, you're transitioning. So when I was there, we began to be much more digital. And what also people don't realize is every place that I've been, I always own my own equipment. I didn't depend upon the company I work for. So I purchased my own laptop, my own cameras, because if I decided to leave or they asked me to leave, I still had stuff to do my work, do my job. So when I was at TV One and CNN, I treated TV One and CNN as my personal venture capitalist. So while I was there, I was buying my own stuff. So when TV One show ended December 2017, I transitioned to my own thing. I literally owned my own cameras, my own switcher, my own lights. So I didn't have to now figure out what's my plan.
Right. You weren't searching for capital to get this started.
Well, I wasn't searching for capital, but also I wasn't searching for equipment. I already had it because I was already planning ahead. And then one of the things that I did when I was there, so we were the only show at TV One that was internally produced. So we didn't actually own a bunch of whole stuff. So when I bought my own stuff, we were always renting stuff from other companies, and our costs were higher. So I went to them, and I was like, all right, so I do a deal for y'all. We can go shoot this project. Y'all can use my equipment at no cost, but we got to co-own the content.
Tell us more about that.
Well, because if you co-own the content, you understand that content is king. Sumner Redstone, who led Viacom, he coined that phrase. And so if you look at now, when you have a library, now you can actually build your network because you own the content. I did a panel with Jane Elliott at University of Michigan, 2015. They probably had about 800 views on the YouTube channel. 2-3 years later, I tell my digital guy, Keenan, y'all go pull that video. We restream it. Every time we restream it, did 250,000. So there's somebody today who never saw the conversation in 2015. So when you turn on television right now, you're seeing repeats. And when you look at MSNBC, when you're watching those old Datelines, those are literally old Datelines. They just got a new intro to it. So library. That's why right now, even those streaming services, they're all building up libraries, because then you can run that stuff over and over and over again. And so you have to understand when you understand the content, when you understand the cost, then you understand what's most important. So content and having a library is most important because you're not always doing something that is live. And so for my approach, everything is content, which is why when I came in, I said, hey, are you streaming this? They said, no. Cool, not a problem. You ain't got to call nobody. I walked over, I said, give me an SDI out. Because, again, this is content.
It is very much so.
And so when you understand that, then you understand the makings of the business. And then, again, that's how people, if you don't study your business, I think one of the greatest mistakes for a lot of entrepreneurs, people have an idea. And they fall in love with the idea, but they don't want to understand the mechanics behind the idea and the infrastructure that is needed. So there are a lot of people in my business who love content. They're like, oh, my God, this camera's great. I'm like, yeah, the camera's great, but the C300 is a $20,000 camera with the lenses, and so you're going to buy one C300, but if you're going to do a 3-camera shoot, what the hell are you going to do?
Right.
You're going to have $60,000. So when we started, I couldn't afford three C300s, so I bought 3 Canon XA25s, which cost me $19.99 a piece. They were all 1080. They gave me exactly what I needed. And then after 2 years, then I bought 3 C300s. Then I bought 2 more. And so 5 years in, I own 5 C300s, 5 Canon 405s, XA25s, XA45s, and the whole deal. But because I understand the technicals piece, then I don't have to rely on somebody lying to me, and now I'm overspending because I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And so that's the mistake I think a lot of entrepreneurs make. They don't study the business of their business. They love the concept. When people come in with an idea, I go, first, how you gonna monetize it? How are you going to make money? They like, I ain't thought about it. I'm like, you might want to think about that.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. It's interesting you say that. So I call myself a recovering executive. I was in banking for 20 years. I actually did the same thing. For the last 2 years that I was in banking, I treated them like a capital evangelist. I did my job. And so that when I launched, I already had contracts. But what's also interesting to me is that most individuals don't understand exactly what you just said about owning your content. How does that translate to somebody who's in the service industry, who is in retail industry? What does that look like? What's their content?
I mean, it's the same thing. Again, it's what is your business? Mm-hmm. How do you plan to make money, and then how do you plan to stay in business? And so it's studying the various mechanics of the business. And again, not just, oh, I love this product. Yeah, but how am I going to make it? How am I going to distribute it? But then also, how am I going to market it? And that's the other piece. And then how I'm also going to market myself.
Yes.
I can't tell you the number of people I run into who are entrepreneurs who come up to me and they're talking to me and they say, hey, I'm a business owner. And I'm going, okay, and they're talking. And then they actually show nothing. They present nothing. They don't ask, and they say they have a product. Then what kills me, and they go, hey, so do you feature, business owners on your show? And I go, you clearly don't watch.
Because you do.
Every Tuesday, I feature black-owned businesses. Every Wednesday, I feature tech businesses. Every Friday, folks in education. So right there, it's a good bet you're not going to be on my show. Because you haven't bothered to actually watch what I do, but you're asking me, do I do it?
Right.
It's the dumbest thing in the world.
Right.
But again, I think for a lot of people, the greatest mistake is that they love the idea.
Yeah.
Ideas are wonderful. You can have a great movie idea, but who is going to watch it? Mm-hmm. I don't care what it is. This could be a great product, okay, but who is going to use it? And that's where a lot of people, I think, really make the mistake. And then also not really understanding also relationship building. And so when I say relationship building, there are people who are so narrow, so they'll meet somebody and they'll go, okay, they're not my sphere of influence, so I don't need to talk to them. I'm like, well, that's stupid because you don't know who they know.
That's right.
So there are people who I know who I'm not in that space, but I go, connect with so-and-so. There are a number of people who I've connected in banking, in legal, in architecture. I mean, I can go on and on and on. That's not what I do, but I know them.
Yes.
And so my deal is I can connect the two of you together.
Yes.
I do that all the time.
Yes.
And so that's the other piece. Napoleon Hill talked about master mind group and Think and Grow Rich. And that is connecting with people who are not necessarily in your space.
Yes.
That's the piece. You don't know who that person knows.
That's right.
I think people are way too transactional because they think, well, if I connect with you, then if I don't see any material benefit in the first 3 to 6 months, it's the waste of relationships. Mm-hmm. Well, the reality is there are some relationships that I have that have not manifested themselves for 15 years. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the time wasn't right. So the question is, how am I building a relationship with somebody? And then all of a sudden, 15 years later, all of a sudden, something happened. It's like, oh, that's how that happens. Mm-hmm. And so that's also, again, I think a lot of mistakes that folks make. They see someone and like, well, what can this person do for me today? Versus, let me just get to know this person and build a relationship with this person. And if it develops into something that can be beneficial business-wise, great. If not, I still have the relationship with them. But the key is, I don't know who they know.
Right.
Or I don't know who they know tomorrow.
Roland, do you think that's generational?
Nope. That's been happening for the longest. It's people being short-sighted. And again, and I get it. I get folks like, I got finite time, I got finite opportunity. But again, I meet people, and I speak to everybody. I don't ignore anybody. I was telling a young journalist the other day, we were somewhere, and it was one of my fellow journalists who was next to me, and they just blew right past her to come speak to me. And I was like, you gonna speak to her? And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, first of all, you don't know who she is. You don't know if that's my wife. You don't know if that's my girlfriend. You don't know if that's my sister. I said, let me explain to you as a journalist. I said, you may not be able to get to so-and-so, the celebrity or the entertainer or the CEO. I said, but guess what? I know the wives. Fred Gray, who was Dr. King's attorney. Fred is, 94 now? He's a Rosa Parks attorney, brilliant lawyer, still practicing in Alabama. So I called Fred's house, do an interview with him, and he tells me the story when we do the interview. He's like, listen, this interview is going to happen. He said, because I get calls all around the country. People want to talk to me. And when the voicemail came on, my wife said, is that Roland Martin? He said, yes. She said, oh, you doing that interview? Yeah. She said, I don't know about the rest of them people, but you go and talk to Roland Martin.
Right.
And she was there with their daughter, and and so he told me the story, and I started cracking up laughing. So it's like, there are a number of actors who I know, who I can hit Sam Jackson and Will Smith. I can direct. So I know Denzel, but Denzel's wife is a huge fan of mine. So when I want to get Denzel, I call Paletta. So again, the mistake that people make is they ignore. I mean, you will meet people and they'll blow past the spouse, and I'm like, who you think you can call and who gonna always know where they are?
That's right.
It was like when Ron Kirk was mayor of Dallas, Patrice didn't she hated journalists calling the house. Patrice would cuss folk out if they called their house before 6 a.m. Well, I was a news director and morning anchor at the black radio station KKDA. So I would call, she'd be like, Ron, it's Roland. He was like, Roland, you the only journalist my wife let call my house. I said, because Patrice loves me more than she loves you. Yeah. So again, that's just one of those things that people just don't think about. They blow past the spouse, not realizing you connect with the spouse, you win.
They have such a distorted view of what really launches agency. And it's interesting. I remember when I was in corporate America, one of the things that I would teach about professional development is do not mistreat the executive assistant. They the real COO.
Oh, listen, I holler at everybody. I talk to, it's always funny. People roll with me and they're like, yo, do you guys speak to everybody? And I'm like, yeah. Because first of all, I mean, I don't believe in ignoring people. I don't believe in ignoring wait staff. I don't believe it. Look, I speak to janitors. I remember we were leaving CNN one day. I was security guards. I was like, all right, y'all, catch y'all later. And I was talking to this anchor, and I was like, you going to say bye? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you going to say bye? I said, your ass get in trouble. You're going to be looking for these 5 security guards.
Yeah. This is true.
Matter of fact, I look at the wait staff. I was at Renaissance weekend in South Carolina, and it was like New Year's Eve, and they walked out. They had dessert and stuff, but they walked out with this red velvet cake. And everybody was like, I don't see red velvet cake out there. Like, it ain't out there. They're like, so how do you get a whole red velvet cake brought to your table? I said, hell, I talked to all the damn wait staff 2 days ago. I said, that was
I know
nice,
that's right.
I said, it was a nice red velvet cake. And I was like, yo, y'all got anything in the back?
Right.
And they said, Mr. Martin, hold on. And they brought a whole cake out. And I was like, if you ain't sitting at my table, you can't get no red velvet cake. Yeah. But they literally ignored the wait staff. So look, I holler at everybody because you never know. Plus, and this is the other key about business. Folk like that they know who getting fired, who getting laid off.
Everything.
They know what contracts coming up.
Where all the bodies are buried.
They be like, hey, Roland, let me holler at you. I'm like, appreciate that, dog.
Listen, they really do. You know what I found, Roland, though, is that most individuals who don't have an intrinsic self-value of themselves find it hard to find value in other people outside of what they can do for them.
Right.
Because if I don't love me, I don't love you. But if I don't value me, I also can't see, other than what I know, what you can value.
That's it.
For me.
Right. And there's value in just saying hello. I don't understand I don't understand why that's so hard.
It's not hard.
I'm gonna speak to everybody.
Unless you don't think somebody should say hello to you.
Yeah, and folks do that, and I'm kind of like, okay. I'm like, you can ignore them, and I've seen where people get in trouble when they need help, and I'm like,
yes,
see, you spoke to them,
right? So the lesson here is speak to everybody and make sure you get to know Roland, because apparently he's got agency with everybody.
Oh, I got no problem being real clear. I got hookups.
I love it.
I ain't got no problem. I mean, listen, Omar, I'll give you this one here. Omar Dorsey plays Hollywood on Queen Sugar with the Black Journalist Convention in Vegas. And run to him. He said, man, where you headed? I said, well, look, I'm about to go to this bar. I said, I'm going to see. He said, what you doing later? I said, going to see Lionel Richie. And he was like, bet. I said, you want to go? He's like, what you mean? I was like, got another ticket. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, Lionel Richie's my frat brother. I said, he got 2 for me. So we go to the concert, and so we're sitting there. Frat shot me out about 4 or 5 times during the show, and then. They about to sing We Are the World. I was like, all right, let's go. He's like, dude, this is We Are the World. My favorite song. Like, man, let's go. No, he didn't realize, he think we about to leave. He didn't realize, no, I'm about to go backstage.
Yeah.
Concert over. So we would go backstage, and then Lionel comes on the stage. We greet. Then we go in the dressing room. We did about 90 minutes. Omar's sitting there like, I'm in the dressing room with Lionel Richie.
Yeah.
He was like, and we just sitting here kicking it, drinking wine. So I interviewed Omar in December. And we're sitting there in the interview, and I was like, all right, who you want to go see next? He's like, man, that's a good idea. He's like, yo, Anita Baker. I was like, cool. I like, bring me my phone.
Here we go.
So my dad bring my phone. I call Anita. She answered. And I was like, Anita, what's up? She's like, Roland, how you doing? I'm like, I'm sitting there talking to Hollywood. She's like, Hollywood? You talking to Hollywood? She started going crazy. He's sitting there going, Anita Baker know me? And so I hand him the phone, and they talk, and she's like, look, baby, ain't no problem. Roland will send me your email. Pick whatever show you want to go to. You'll be taken care of. And she's like, Roland, I'm going to kill you. I said, I was recording that, too. And he looked at me. He's like, hold up. He said, so you just sat here and called Anita Baker. I was like, yeah, that's what I do. So, again, that for me wasn't a flex. It was literally, I know Anita. She tell me, she's like,
right.
Look. I was like, you want to go? Let's go. So he was sitting there. He's like, well, damn, I need to make a list.
Right.
And he was like,
right.
So he was like, I just talked to him the other day because I went to Darius Rucker's show Friday in Irvine, California. He was like, yo, Darius Rucker. I was like, see, bro, you should have told me.
See.
But again, the point there is you don't know who somebody else knows.
That's right.
That's
right.
why you can't make the assumption.
That's right. I feel like that's a tweetable moment. That's an instant message moment. So I want to transition because Marjorie going to come get us in like 10 minutes.
She'll be all right. She'll be all right.
I didn't say it, Marjorie.
I did. She got to understand. Let me explain something to you, how my show works. When the light comes on, producers are irrelevant. Yeah. People in the control room. What happens out there, that's how we roll. And so she's looking at the schedule and everything. First of all, again, I control the schedule. If I choose to stay in Chicago tonight, I can. So, but yeah, she was, I'll tell her earlier, I was like, can you calm down? She was running around. She's like, I was like, breathe, woosah.
Listen.
I'm good.
Listen.
I said, I am low maintenance. I can do all the stuff myself. We all right.
We all right. So since we all right, I want to talk about your book for a minute.
Got it.
So I believe this is your 4th book.
Something like that.
Something like that.
First one with the actual publisher. I chose to publish. I published my first 5 books, and I did that one because the literary agent. I met her at Emmitt Smith's golf tournament. Anybody knows I'm an avid golfer. I'm a crazy golfer.
But not a Cowboy fan.
Huh?
But not a Cowboy fan.
Oh hell no. Hate the Cowboys more than
neither is most of the room.
I hate the Cowboys more than I hate the Klan. I hate the Cowboys. But I'm a crazy golf fan. I'm a huge, like literally. Oh, and just some of y'all wondering, trust me, I can play my 5.4 handicap. Don't get that confused. And so I met Jan at Emmitt Smith's golf tournament. She's like, I want to represent you. I was like, Jan, I did 5 books. I don't need a publisher. Because I remember it was so, again, I want you to understand, again, when you understand the business. So HarperCollins, they called me for a meeting, and they were like, so I gave like 5 ideas, and they like blew them all. I was like, they was like, well, I think that's a magazine article. Then I went, hold up. I said, let me help y'all out. I don't need y'all to do a book. I said, let me be real clear. All of these are going to get published, including this one. Yeah. I said, so let me just help y'all out. I said, now, if y'all want to have that conversation, I can take Roland the writer off, and then we can put on the CAP CEO, and we can talk about paperweight. We can talk about hardback versus softcover. Yes. We can talk about glossy versus matte. We can talk about the layout. We can talk about the distribution. I said, so y'all want to have that conversation? I said, I don't even need y'all for marketing. I'm on CNN, TV One, Tom Jones, and at the time I had 2 million followers. I said, so I can go hire a copy.
Hello.
And they just froze. I was like, no, we can go on with the meeting right now. I just want y'all to understand I don't actually need you. Again, a perfect example when you understand the business of the business.
Yes.
And I wanted them to understand I don't need your permission to write these books.
Yes.
I can write them myself and sell them. Yeah, they were like, that's why I never signed with them. Because again, if you don't respect my intellect and I know this game,
that's right.
Then we can't be in business together.
That's right. That's right. I also think that's the power of knowing your power. Because that's the other thing. Sometimes people don't self-value, but they also don't understand the power that they have. There are so many people who sit on, I think, amazing ideas in actual business plans, but don't recognize that you don't have to wait for some other.
Yeah, they're waiting for someone to give them permission.
Yes.
And that, to me, I think is one of the greatest mistakes for anybody who wants to be in business. If you're waiting for someone to say, you know what, that's a great idea. No, I'm not. I mean, look, the reason I launched my own is because I wasn't interested in going ask somebody at CNN or MSNBC, can I? Uh-huh. And what people have to understand is, I think people also completely misread when we talk about money. I've worked hard to get black journalists on all of these different networks. But the reality is, Robin Roberts gets $20 million a year, Good Morning America, but she still has to ask permission. And so I wasn't interested in having to go ask somebody, can I?
Right.
I'm probably gonna be going to South Africa in October, Dubai in November, St. Croix early October. I don't have to go ask somebody, can I go do my show from those places?
That's right.
Because the only person above me on my org chart is God. It's God.
Hello.
And it's Roland.
I can relate to that.
And I had somebody ask me, this woman asked me, she's like, hey, so when y'all deciding stories, you have your meeting, do y'all vote? I was like, I said, I'm sorry, when you say, do we vote? What are we voting on? And she said, oh, but you know, there are other ideas. I said, oh no, I listen to other ideas, but there's only one vote. If I don't feel like doing it, we don't do it. And even if they put in the script, I go, not reading it. But I wanted them. But again, though, what people have to understand, and these are, if there are two words that you take away from here. And again, when you begin to understand this, it's called freedom and flexibility. Somebody asked me, and they said, Roland, if a network came and offered you $3 million a year to host a show on the network, would you take it? I said, no. They said, are you crazy? I said, first of all, you will get used to the check after the first 3 months. The first time I hear no, I'm going to be pissed. And I'm going to feel like I'm in a straitjacket with handcuffs and duct tape. And that's the thing. If I believe that that's a story, I am not going to tolerate somebody telling me, no, I can't cover it. So the money is irrelevant. For me, it's the freedom to be able to tell that story without any shackles.
That's powerful. Since you went there, and since we've been talking so much about ownership in businesses, and we're fortunate, I think, to have in the audience a large share of TBC's anchor partners and members. So that's, you know, ethnically diverse businesses. There's also legacy corporations, so whether they're academia, philanthropic, et cetera. I think that some of the information that you have in your book and a lot of the recent conversations that you were having, they would find helpful. But before we shift to talking about some of that, I heard Marjorie mention earlier the distinction between DEI and economic inclusion.
DEI is mostly bullshit.
Okay.
No, it is.
Tell us why.
Let me be real clear. DEI is mostly bullshit. That's marketing. That's hype. Okay? First of all, most DEI, I'll do meetings with agencies and companies that bring the DEI person. I was like, no disrespect, but why are you in this meeting? I said, you brought the DEI person in to meet with me. I said, yeah, when Disney meets with you, do you bring the DEI person in? No, you don't. I said, so why in the hell are they in with me? Then what gets me is when they bring the foundation person. I was like, why in the hell is the foundation person in the meeting with me? Oh, I said, because y'all want to explain to me all the stuff y'all do for black people. I said, if you don't bring the foundation person to your Comcast or Disney meeting, I'm not meeting with them. The DEI person largely has no budget, has no staff. I can't talk to you. I have a media company. Bring your chief marketing officer in. Then if you want to talk about your agency, bring your chief investment officer in. But I'm not dealing with your DEI person. That is a position where they simply send them off to give speeches, to sit on panels, to pick up awards. And it is not about driving the bottom line. There's not a single DEI person I know who has a direct impact on the P&L of any company. And I tell any DEI person, if you have no P&L responsibility, you're not going to get promoted. And so that's the fundamental problem that we have. And that's why after the death of George Floyd, there were literally in 2 weeks after his death, there were 81 DEI jobs on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And in the past 6 months, you've had about 30 to 40% of those jobs actually get wiped out.
They did.
Because they're not real. And so what people have to understand, and even what you talk about, even this phrase supplier diversity, John Rogers with Era Capital has been using called business diversity.
Yes.
And what we have to understand with that is we've got to expand. We talk about contracts. Historically, it's always been the focus on construction, engineering, architecture. When you look at companies that are spending literally billions of dollars on professional services, there are politicians in this room who also understand this here. I cover city government, county government. There are two ways to do contracts: low bidder or professional services. Professional services don't require to be low bidder. I saw it play out when I covered city council. When you got this turncoat trader, jackass brother in Orlando, who used to run the urban league there, who now is over that district, the Disney district of Ron DeSantis, they completely changed all the different contracts. They were awarding contracts not to the lowest bidder, because they don't have to. You actually don't have to. And what you're seeing here is, because the slogan, I saw the slogan. What's the slogan? What's your slogan?
Ain't no stopping us now.
No, that's a lie. No. Let me be perfectly clear. To every person sitting in this room, there is a bullseye on your back right now. I didn't say every black person. Every African American, every Latino,
yes,
every Asian, every woman, every Native American, and every white man who is an ally. Why? Because we have individuals who do not want to see this happen. 2% of venture capital dollars go to African Americans. Federal government spends $560 billion a year on contracts. 1.67% go to African Americans. When the affirmative action case went before the Supreme Court, I kept telling everybody, y'all, this is not about affirmative action in college. When we start seeing the tax on critical race theory and the tax on books, I say, y'all, this is not about that. You are about to see this wholesale attack on the efforts to diversify resources in this country. So the basis of my book goes back to 2009. When the survey was done, the question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, more than the majority said yes. Only one group was less than the majority, white Americans. September 2016, question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America economically for the next 10 years? Black people, lowest wealth, highest optimism. That literally makes no sense. Latinos, second lowest wealth, second highest optimism. White Americans, highest wealth, lowest optimism. Now, as Captain Hughes said, you got to be deeper than mustard on a hot dog. So a lot of people in media don't ask the second and third and fourth question. We went through an entire election in 2016. People kept talking about, economic anxiety. I would think the people would have economic anxiety are the brokest people, which are black people. But we were literally having these conversations about white voters having economic anxiety. I'm like, what in the hell are you, why are you on Prozac? What's going on here? What we have to understand, there literally right now is a systematic attack on the entire infrastructure. Ed Bloom plans to sue the top 100 law firms to challenge all of their diversity initiatives. They're targeting a black women-led venture capital firm in Atlanta right now. And so you're about to see and understand Stephen Miller, that white nationalist who worked for Trump. I don't care, that's exactly what he is, because who the guy looked up to him when he was at Duke? Richard Spencer, that white supremacist who got destroyed on TV One. They sued when the black farmers, they set aside $5 billion for black and Hispanic farmers, but under Trump, white farmers got $25 billion. They're attacking the program for $5 billion. The farmers are losing their land because they can't access the money. They plan to sue every corporation in America that is doing what's happening in this room right now. I need you to understand it's coming. And so right now, the real challenge is going to be, are companies going to stand up to these individuals? Are companies going to say, hell no, we're going to fight you tooth and nail because we believe in the power of a diverse workforce, the power of diverse suppliers, and if you challenge us, we're going to spend the money and fight you tooth and nail. But they literally are coming. They are filing the week after the Supreme Court affirmative action decision. 16 attorneys generals sent letters to different companies saying, we think that your diversity programs are now unconstitutional, based upon that Supreme Court ruling. And so when I say there's a target on the back, and this is about to get real ugly. And so the question is, are you now going to see the business community stand up against this here? Because remember, in the same Supreme Court decision, they allowed affirmative action at the military academies.
Right. Because
the military leaders said it's in the national interest for us to do this here. The business community should use the exact same language as our former military leaders and say, it is in the national interest for us to be using diverse suppliers. And that's going to be the real challenge. And now we're going to find out who are the real allies.
Well, since you said that, and Marjorie started
Why you
fanning.
keep looking at her?
Listen, she made me sit here so I could see her.
Just turn away. Golly. Go ahead.
Since you mentioned allies,
They ain't trying to leave.
they
Don't
not.
worry about Marjorie.
They not. I hear
Go
Outlook going off, canceling meetings as we speak. Okay.
They didn't want to go to that meeting anyway.
Speaking of allies, is there such a thing as a white economic ally?
Absolutely.
What does that look like?
Look, I mean, if I go back to the civil rights movement, you know, the night Obama won, when I shed tears on CNN, because the first thing that popped in my head when they put up President-elect Barack Obama were black soldiers who would lynch their uniforms. And there were a number of people who I listed who died for this night. One of the people I mentioned was Viola Liuzzo, white mother from Michigan, who had her head blown off after the Selma to Montgomery march by 3 Klansmen in a pickup truck because she was driving one of the black workers, and I actually interviewed that brother in Selma for the 50th anniversary. And in fact, Tony Bennett, who just died, was supposed to be riding with her back to the airport, but he actually caught another car. He was supposed to be in that car with Viola Liuzzo.
Wow.
James Reed, pastor from Massachusetts, white pastor, was killed as they were before they had the Selma to Montgomery march. There were a number of, look, we can take this all the way back. I mean, one of the baddest white boys ever in America was John Brown. So I love it when I hear people say, so-and-so was a man of his time. I'm like, no, John Brown was the same time, and he was there, he was hardcore against slavery. And so the reality is, I know some white folks who have gone harder on this issue than some black people I know. I know some trifling-ass black people and Latinos and Asian Americans and Native Americans who ain't done a damn thing, who've been occupying a seat and been operating as a spook sitting by the door doing nothing and not advocating for somebody else. And in fact, I've been calling out all kind of black folks sitting on boards of directors saying, you didn't get that board seat just because your ass is special. Folk fought for you to get that board seat.
That's right.
And
That's
there's an
right.
expectation.
Y'all heard that?
There's an expectation for you to do something while you are there. But the same thing goes, but we have to be honest and challenge folk where they are. And I'll say this here and again, I've been saying it for years. The reality is There's been no group that has benefited greatly from affirmative action than white women. And the problem that I've had nationally is that whenever you've had these attacks on affirmative action on the federal, state, and local level, African Americans were leading the fight to save the programs. Latinos were second, far behind African Americans, and in many of these cases, white women were non-existent. I'm like, yo, you get more of the contracts. But let me also unpack this thing even further, because I need people to understand when you talk about who has fought to create these opportunities. How many of y'all heard of Title IX? Who thinks Title IX? Raise your hand. You ever heard of Title IX? Who thinks Title IX was about sports? Now, when we celebrate Title IX today, people think it's all about sports.
Yeah.
Title IX initially was not about sports. Title IX was about opening the professional schools for women. You saw an explosion of women who became doctors, lawyers, engineers, and dentists after 1972. If you ask the average person, where does Title IX come from? They can't tell you. Title IX is a provision of the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
It is.
So all of these women, a lot of these white women who have benefited from Title IX need to be thanking a whole bunch of black folk for getting the 1964 Civil Rights Act passed.
Yes.
If you are disabled, you should be thanking a whole bunch of black people, because the 1996 American with Disabilities Act is based upon the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Yes, it is.
If you are Korean or you are Japanese or Chinese and you're voting your native language, you should be thanking a bunch of black people, because that's a provision of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And if you gay and you love same-sex marriage, you should be thanking black people, because that's the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which was one of the 3 Reconstruction Amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th. So the point I'm making is black folks have been on the front lines fighting every step of the way, and now is the time for those who have benefited from the works of black folks, who have benefited greater than black folks, to fight for these same things, because they literally are under attack.
Woo.
And I will say this right now, women making up a majority of the country, if an army of white women stand up today and become 21st century Viola Liuzos and say, how dare you attack these programs, I can guarantee you folks are going to back down, but they got to show up for this fight, because it's here.
That's right. That's right. Woo. So in closing,
I ain't scared to say it. My show is called Unfiltered for that very reason.
It is. It is. I want it unfiltered. I just want you to be nice to me. I mean, I like rolling with Roland, but.
All right, look, sometimes you can't be nice all the time.
Not all the time, especially not about matters such as these.
Now, we were nice in the first 20 minutes. Now we got to get to the meat.
So in closing, and this will be a loaded question, which is why I want to close with it. Knowing our current climate, knowing the political calendar space that we're in. We had some guests last night. You already know that.
There's a whole bunch of lying going on last night.
We had some guests last night.
Straight up.
Knowing also some of the data that you shared in your book around the trend of population by 2043 making America for the first time a minority-majority country. It is predicted for everyone in the audience that by 2043, 47% of America will be white Americans. And for the first time, minorities, people of color, will be the majority.
Somewhat. Because you also have to deal, again, this is just being honest, you also have to deal with the reality of white Hispanics who identify more as white than brown. Somebody got to say it. I'm born and raised in Texas. I've lived this my entire life. Again, some people are like, damn, did he actually go there? Yes, I did. Because these things are real. We have to confront the reality that when you talk about white supremacy in this world, the reality is whiteness has had value.
Yes.
It has had value. It has advantages. And so when you're considered a person of color, if you're black, if you're brown, folks are like, hey, we know the history. It still exists. Yesterday, I did a story yesterday of a black ball player at Valdosta State College with a white coach wanting him to cut his locks. And I'm like, what the hell I got to do playing baseball? And that's why we have the Crown Act that's being passed by various states outlawing hair discrimination. It's not passed on the federal level, but these things exist. And so what I need people to understand is I need folk And again, when I say folk, everybody, there are a bunch of clueless black people walking around. There are people with their head in the sand who are black, who are Latino, who are Asian, who are Native American, who are white, who are not accepting of this reality. I'm going to call a thing a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a man. I'm not going to sit here and deny sexism don't exist.
Right.
That's stupid as hell.
Right.
But see, we walk around and go, oh, no, those things don't exist. Really? We can show you the stats. We can show you what happens, whether it's police brutality. We can show you what happens when it comes to contracting. We can show you what happens when it comes to education. What we have to do is we got to stop playing games and be honest. And I don't like when people say, I don't see color. That's stupid because that means you blind. I can see a black dude. I can see a white woman. I can see somebody with Asian. I see she got locks. I see who got a perm. I got to see who got no hair. I see who got a fro. I see folk for who they are. But what I'm not going to do is somehow act like I don't see. If I see a white dude, I'm gonna say that's a white dude. Why do we play this game where no, I don't see color? Yes, you do. Because if we and I want us to start asking some very difficult questions, and don't worry about hush your way. This is real simple.
You look, I'm trying to come back next year.
You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I write you a note. Don't worry about it. I want y'all to understand this. That baby, that don't mean nothing to me. Let me explain something to y'all, and this is real. This is what I want you to now ask yourself and ask your colleagues. First, this is what I call a voluntary room, meaning you chose to come here, but you don't know who else bought a ticket. I want you to now think about the voluntary moments you have. Who do you go to lunch with? Who do you invite to your house? See, what then happens is we start challenging ourselves because we always say, oh, no, I have a diverse life. Really? Is your church diverse? Is your dinner table diverse? Are your friends diverse? Who you vacation with diverse? When you start asking those questions, then you start getting real answers.
Yeah.
What people have to recognize is that we have made tremendous strides in this country. There have been tremendous changes, but there still are institutional, structural, systematic barriers that exist that are deeply rooted in Jim Crow. Last week, 3 weeks ago, a three-person federal panel of the Fifth Circuit ruled unconstitutional the Mississippi law that prevents folks convicted of certain felonies from voting for the rest of their lives. That law was passed at the 1890 Mississippi Constitutional Convention, which was convened specifically to stop black people from voting. In Virginia, same thing. There was a state senator in 1905 who literally said, this bill is to keep the darkies from voting. We are living with reality today of Jim Crow laws, Jim Crow systems. So we've removed the colored water fountains, but do you still have the systemic barriers that exist that keep folk from being able to access it? I'm in the media business. 2001, when BET was sold to Viacom for $2.8 billion, black-owned media was getting 1% of all advertising contracts. In 2023, black-owned businesses are getting 1% of all advertising contracts. Even though with many of these companies, we represent 20, 30, 40% of the market share. Why am I saying all of that? That's why black-owned businesses, black-owned media cannot grow. That's why we are small. So what we have to understand is, as long as you still have a system that's locking people out from economic prosperity, then don't complain when you say, I can't believe these shootings are happening. Look at these communities. John Hope Bryant, Operation Hope, says, show me a community with a credit score of 700 or higher. I will show you one where there are never any riots. Whew. And so we have to understand this is about the money in America. There's only one agency that shares along with the White House, the Treasury Department. If you're not having a money conversation, you're not having an American conversation. I don't want to hear all the other stuff. This has to be a money conversation, and there is about to be a wholesale attack on every effort, every group like this one, every corporation that has tried to level the playing field, and you had better be prepared for war. And in the words of my alpha founder, one of our 7 jewels, Burton Woods and Tandy, he said, because this is going to be a fight, and he made perfectly clear that we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice.
Y'all give it up for Roland. Look, Roland, before you leave, thank you. Yes, yes. On behalf of the Business Council, we thank you so much for coming and seeing us today here in Milwaukee. Flying in this morning, he is on his way out. I do have to keep him on schedule, but I gave him as much time as he can have. But I am going to let Deidre, before you all head out, just make some closing remarks about when you exit, and then we will be all set. Just quickly, you have swag bags, so when you exit out, please grab your swag bag for your name tag. That's how we're going to do that. And then also, Roland will be sitting at the table where he will be selling books as well as signing them for you for a few minutes, okay? Thank you all very, very much.
Well, before y'all leave, hang on. We've got just a couple of more things to say, but I know that was a super, super dynamic message. Marjorie gave most of the notes, so I'm going to say just a couple of things. Your sponsor envelopes, don't forget to give. The sponsor envelopes were, I believe they were on the table. I don't know. They were on the table. And there are volunteers in the lobby that can take those envelopes. Marjorie mentioned to make sure you get your swag bag. With that being said, I enjoyed being your MC. Thank you for a dynamic 25th anniversary. You all get back to your workplaces, and don't forget to stand for what you believe in.
Ship will carry our bodies safe to shore. Though the truth may vary, this ship will carry our bodies safe to shore. Turn off your tears and listen. Pain throws your hope to the ground. Love turns the whole thing around. No, it won't all go the way it should, but I know the heart of life is good. almost never had good timing. Then the circle of your friends will defend the silver lining. Pain throws your heart to the ground. Love ties the